All right, welcome to JB&A Today. This is Nicholas, your host, here in Sonoma, kicking off our run-up to NAB. We're really excited because today we have Tony Barbagallo, the product manager for Caringo, in studio with us to talk a little bit about what Caringo does and how excited they are for NAB. So let's fire it off. But first, I want to know, what was the first piece of technology you bought with your own money?
This would be, I would say, back in the mid-'80s. I bought a Denon CD player for $2,000. $2,000. It was built as a high fidelity CD player. You know, it was pretty large. It was a giant component that fit into the stereo system.
Wow, that's I remember those. Those were big.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing to think of big CD players down to little tiny ones. So far this week I've gotten 8-track player, 8-track shoulder bag. What was some of the other fun ones? Computers, but that's the first CD player. Oh, it was a $900 VCR at one point.
Yep.
So that's, I think you trumped them in terms of cost on that. Do you still have the CD player?
Believe it or not, yes.
Yeah, those things last forever,
yeah.
Especially at that size, because they can get beat around a lot.
Right.
Okay, so what was the first CD that went into it?
Oh boy, that was most likely Genesis. And then there were 3.
A little Phil.
Yeah.
Nice. Good choice. Okay, now Tony, what was your first entrance into the technology industry?
I actually started working at General Electric on, if anyone remembers, Tom Clancy novels.
Oh, yeah.
I was doing the more boring side, but we were working on sonar testing systems.
Nice.
So,
Can't argue
pretty
that.
interesting.
Now, if somebody doesn't know Caringo, how would you explain it to them in a nutshell?
You know, if we take apart the whole notion of software-defined storage and everything like that, I think probably the easiest way to describe Caringo is we offer a platform that is S3 compatible storage, but on-premise.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, about demystifying storage and specifically S3 storage and object storage and trying to simplify the conversation for people to get it. And I think that's a great way of saying it's S3 on-prem, right?
Exactly.
That experience of having your data, that same kind of cloud experience, but right in your own data center.
Right. And a lot of people that are familiar with Amazon and AWS, they tend to use the terms interchangeably, S3 storage. But really S3 for us and for many organizations, and even now organizations with kids coming out of college, they're all programming to the S3 protocol, whether it is on-prem or going up to AWS, but it's just that protocol is becoming much more the norm in terms of accessing storage.
And it's no longer a connector to the cloud, it's a connector across the premise now between applications and storage venues.
Exactly, because third-party storage vendors, MAM vendors, everybody are using that as a sort of a de facto standard, originally because they were using it to target AWS.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit like XML. It's sort of a universal language now, a universal connector API that everybody can build to.
Exactly.
It's pretty impressive. It's good. It makes it easier for everyone to code, or at least say we can all connect in a certain way. So what's exciting for Caringo right now? What's new from you all?
Well, you know, I started Caringo 3 years ago now, and one of the things we were really looking at was we had this back-end HTTP-based, web-based access to storage, which, you know, started, I'd say, with AWS and even us back in the mid first decade of 2000, probably 2005, 2006. But obviously, storage is something that is fairly lumbering in terms of its maturity, and most organizations, even today, third-party applications, et cetera, they're still file-based. So for us, we've been really focusing for the past 3 years, not only with advancing our object storage backend, but also working on ways to bridge that gap between file and object, and between object and file. And so that's really taken up a lot of our effort and has been pretty exciting because it's now allowed us to get into different applications and work with organizations where they may want a giant scalable pool of storage that they can access with web-based or S3 protocols, but they also have their existing applications which are file-based, and they'd like to merge the two.
Yeah, that's tough because when we've tried to connect in the past to S3-based storage solutions. The problem is if you don't have an S3 connector, you're not getting in the door.
Right.
And if you need to view files on the fly or very quickly, you've got to go through that API route, and it's just not easy. With Drive and with the NFS mounts and the different tool sets, you're giving people a file-based interface to the S3 storage.
Exactly.
Making it really simple. So if I need to browse a file system, I can. If I need to let my application connect, it can. So it's just really simplifying and demystifying that whole S3 conundrum.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's worth noting is Amazon has never really standardized or published the S3 protocol as a particular standard. So it is still evolving. So vendors like us really need to stay on top of any changes, enhancements, deletions of what that S3 protocol is from Amazon's standpoint.
Do you think there'll ever become a separation between S3 and Amazon, or will people always think S3 and no Amazon?
I don't know if there will ever be a separation unless Amazon really does push it out as a protocol standard, and then perhaps that would provide the impetus to sort of separate them.
Yeah.
But again, until then, it's still interesting for me to see that organizations, like CNN, Turner, they're actually having their developers just program to S3, and they're not going to the cloud. They're staying on-prem.
They're staying on-prem. Got it. So I think people get confused sometimes who needs this and where they should be using this.
Sure.
Because it's always like, well, if I'm done with the files, I might put it in the cloud. I might use S3. But this has really got a very wide reach. We talked earlier about, maybe autonomous car manufacturers that are creating tons of data.
Right.
That step outside of media entertainment. You mentioned, companies like Turner, all those looking at S3-based storage and connecting the dots. So the ObjectStore really fits a wide variety of use cases.
Absolutely.
Where do you see it falling in?
Well, one of the unique things about our platform is we are software. We run on standard x86 servers. We can start very small. I mean, I have a complete cluster running on my MacBook Pro.
Nice.
A couple gigs.
Apple never saw that coming.
Probably not. And by the way, I wouldn't actually recommend that for a production environment, but it does serve a great purpose for demonstration. Having said that, I think, again, the beauty of software defined is you could create something that's simply limited or not limited by the hardware you can add to a particular environment. So that's one aspect, the ability to start small so you can get your feet wet. But really, I think where you're going to see this on-premise S3-based storage excel is when we're talking about IoT, self-driving cars and all the data that needs to be gathered. Media and entertainment, where you have lots and lots of raw video footage that no one deletes anything anymore.
Oh,
obviously.
no, video editors are pack rats. Let's be perfectly clear.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so now once you're starting to get into the petabytes of data, are you really going to push that to the cloud? First, it takes forever to get a petabyte from your environment to the cloud. If you want to get it back, that's an extra charge, and there's time involved there. So really, the question becomes, how fast do you want to access the data? And for us, we're really seeing a start of a replacement of spinning disk as the sort of nearline or second tier storage as a replacement to tape.
Yeah, it's interesting. In the news world, you don't need it until you needed it 5 minutes ago.
Right.
And then to wait to get it back from the cloud, you may have already lost your opportunity on that story. And it's gone on. And with ObjectStore, you can get it much quicker. Now, one of the value propositions that I look at with Caringo is their ability to run on just about any piece of hardware, right? I mean, whatever that storage chassis, as long as it meets the processor spec, you guys are good running on top of it.
Exactly.
Has that given you a lot of value in going into environments where they're using old equipment and you've been able to repurpose that and give new life to that old storage they have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's twofold. We can actually run on whatever the client's hardware is of choice, so they don't have to go out and procure something different. If they're a Supermicro shop, buy some more Supermicros. If you're a Cisco UCS shop, that's great. We fit into there. But yeah, we actually have had organizations where typically, you deprecate your hardware 3 or 5 years, and then what do you do with it? And we've had storage organizations that say, I'll take those servers.
Yeah.
Because we can not only use any hardware, we can mix and match the hardware. So I can use a 4-year-old server with some hard drives in it and add it to the cluster. We're fine. We have a sort of a self-leveling, self-load balancing algorithm as part of our storage operating system that is quite happy using the latest and greatest hardware with high-end, 10 terabyte drives or 200 gig drives on 4-year-old hardware.
When I was working with Eric on understanding the product better, one of the things that I thought was really amazing is your ability to transition hardware, is to take an old chassis offline and migrate to a new chassis, and the way it intelligently migrated the data and ensured that all your data was backed up and was there. And I thought that was an amazing way to think about the aging process of your media, as your hardware will run out, but your files never will go away.
Exactly. And we do have an elegant way to do that in our UI. We can retire a node or a server, and everything happens nice and everything acquiesces and load balances, although our support and QA guys simply like to go into the cluster that we have in our lab and just pull the network cable off and take the machine away.
Shock and awe.
Yes.
That's the most powerful tool, right?
We typically don't recommend it, but they like to do it to make sure the software is always working.
Nice. Okay, so looking outside Caringo's stack right now, what are you most excited about in the tech industry? What are you seeing that is really got your attention?
Well, and I tell you, for me, when I got my degree, and we'll not mention what year that was, but back then AI was considered to be something really big and up and coming. And it really never saw the light of day. And I think that had to do with processing power. Yeah. And today people talk about artificial intelligence. I tend to think of it as machine learning. And machine learning, again, means lots and lots of data that is getting processed and analyzed. And I think that to me is very exciting. Yeah,
I read an article last night talking about, I don't know if you've watched this, the Justice League movie. Henry Cavill had to do some retakes as Superman. And he had a mustache. On contract, he wasn't allowed to shave the mustache during the reshoots. So they digitally removed the mustache. And somebody took some of the blank shots on a very inexpensive computer using AI and did it in a matter of hours. And it actually looked better than the one that was done in the studio as an AI. So it's interesting now to start to see some of these applications evolve. But you're right, it came down to processing power, where we're seeing processing increase now. We're seeing more and more capability out of these AIs. And it's definitely going to be interesting to see how it impacts not just media and entertainment, but the rest of the world from IoT and beyond.
Yeah, exactly. And I hope that people will, now AI has had this really buzzword phenomenon, right? But it'd be nice to actually demystify AI and what it really means. Facial recognition, having enough data for a self-driving car to know when to turn left or when to stop.
Most importantly, AI uses data.
Yes.
Which means they're going to need more Caringo to drive it.
Storage.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so NAB's coming up. You all are going to be at the Pre-NAB show with us at the SLS 6th and 7th of April. Or 7th and 8th, I forget which. We'll have them in the show notes. That one's coming up. I'm excited to have you there because you're going to be able to show some really unique workflows, how people can build their own on-prem S3 environment. And then NAB. Are you showing anything new at NAB, or is it really just reinforcing the story that's out there right now?
Well, we started, our first NAB was last year, and then we went to NAB in New York. And I think for us this year, we do really want to start showing more of the workflows. Nice. When we were there last year, we were showcasing our technology, and we were taking people through the flow of our user interface and the technical flow of the product.
Really good at introducing the world to who you are.
Exactly.
At that point,
and this year we really want to move to real world applications of the technology, but again also featuring that whole bridging the gap of file and web-based, HTTP-based object storage, whatever you want to refer to it as.
So I think one of the most important thing that the audience should understand from this though is while you're new to NAB, Caringo's not new to the industry.
Correct.
How many years?
We were probably considered a pioneer of object storage. In fact, our early roots were content addressable storage, if anyone is familiar with that, which was essentially read-only storage, fast read storage for compliance. Write once, read many. And that technology actually found its way into being licensed by EMC. back in 2004, 2005 in their Centera line of product. So that's really was the genesis of our object storage platform, and that we started shipping in 2006.
So Caringo really brings a tremendous amount of credibility and experience into the media entertainment space.
Absolutely.
Nice. Well, this is awesome. Tony, thank you for being here. Really excited about NAB coming up. So show notes are there. Booth number will be in the show notes. Make sure you come out and visit us in April at the SLS, and we'll see you on the show floor in Vegas. All right, Tony, thank you.
Thank you, Nick.